I'm sorry, we're gonna have to stop you right there. We cannot allow sharks in the building, it's just a safety issue.
What is up everyone, welcome back to my channel. Roadrunner here with another Adobe Premiere Pro tutorial. Today we're going to be covering cloning yourself. Let's get started. For this first example, I did the exact same tutorial only using After Effects. So this is my sample footage from that project. And what you'll notice is I did 3 exact same shots, but it was really just 3 shots taken from one long shot. So if you're gonna do this, I would highly recommend putting your camera on a tripod and doing all these in one take. If the tripod moves at all, this probably will not work. You will have to have the exact same shot on all 3 shots. So for this example, I just did one long take of me sitting down on the couch and then me looking up at me as I walked in the door. So I walked outside and then I walked back in and pretended to look at me on the couch. Now you'll notice before I actually sat down on the couch, I had a few seconds, 15 seconds of just the camera sitting there. And that is because in this example where I'm sitting on the couch, you'll actually notice a car go by right here. It goes by through the window. So what we're actually gonna do is we're gonna end up masking that out as well. So for the next project, what I actually did, if you've seen my video resume, and I will put the link up here in the top corner. For my video resume, I actually did me interviewing myself, but 3 different versions of me. So again, I did one really long take of me sitting in each spot asking questions, and then I had a green screen behind me to make it look like I was sitting in a conference room. Now, I would highly recommend if you try to replicate this, cloning yourself and green screening in the same shot is definitely a lot of work. And I can actually zoom in here and show you a few issues that I ran into. First of all, the paint on the wall here was a little glossy. So I was getting some spill from the green screen onto the edge of this wall and on the edge of this one as well. And then originally when I did this, I didn't cover the table, and the table was also reflecting the green screen. So that was very difficult as well. So I had to reshoot with a black tablecloth on the table, which was very difficult. So with that being said, we can go ahead and we can get into it. So for this first example, what we're gonna do is we're just gonna take the 3 video files and we're just gonna go ahead and stack them on top of each other. And for the first one, what we're gonna do is we're gonna click on it and we're gonna go to the Effects Controls panel. We're gonna toggle down the opacity and we're gonna pull out the pen tool. And once I have the pen tool selected, I'm actually going to do something like 25% and zoom out so I can get a little bit around just my frame. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and just draw a mask around me walking in the door. And you'll notice right away that you see me and the version of me below sitting on the couch. Now with this version, you may not notice it, but in a lot of versions where I see people do this, you'll notice a hard cut right here where the mask is. So in order to get rid of this hard cut, we can actually pull this out and this will feather it, or you can change the feather value here in the effects control panel. I'm gonna go ahead and say about 45 is close enough. Awesome, that looks good to me. Now what we're gonna do is to get rid of this car light. Now, a lot of people will notice this car light and be like, whatever, Ryan, that's nothing, I wouldn't worry about it. But I'm a bit of a perfectionist. So we're gonna get rid of it anyway. So we're going to click on the second layer and go up to the effects control panel and hit the pen tool. And what we're going to do is I'm actually gonna zoom in for this one a little bit, and I'm going to just mask myself out. And there we go. Now we don't have any more car lights because it is showing this first version, which will be my plate, where nothing absolutely happens. So this is what's going to be shown underneath. So now I can show me and the other version of me walking in the door. And there we go, that's all set. Oh, and I forgot to feather this out. So we're gonna go up here and we're actually going to feather this out about 25. Now, if you look at the mask that I did for this version, I would highly suggest you use as minimal points as possible. However, I was trying to not only mask myself out, but I didn't really want to cut this painting off and risk having the lighting changed. Which brings me to another point. For this version, it wasn't really a project that was going to go on my portfolio. This was literally just for the purposes of creating the After Effects tutorial. So I ended up just leaving my camera on auto ISO, which I highly recommend you don't do for a project like this, because if the lighting changes whatsoever, if you've got natural lighting outside or, you know, somebody's wearing a white shirt, it could in some way change the ISO, which could end up ruining your shot. So let's take a look at what we have. And that looks good to me. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and get on to the next one. Now, as I mentioned before, with this one, there are 3 versions of me, and I did not have a plate of just the conference room. So this is going to be a little bit more challenge just because there are 3 versions of me. And you'll notice in this shot, there is my microphone, my shotgun mic is there. And then in this one, I moved it here. And in this one, I moved it here. See, I knew I could put it in the shot because I knew I was going to end up just masking myself out. So we're gonna do the exact same thing we did before. And we're gonna move these all 3 on top of each other. So for this one, we're gonna end up doing the exact same thing we did on the last one. We're gonna go ahead and click on the pen tool and effects controls, and then we're going to zoom out and use as few points as possible and just mask me out. There we go. Now we already have 2 versions of myself, and we're gonna go on to this last one. And for this one, since this version of me is moving, what we're gonna wanna do is we're gonna wanna be careful that I only mask out as little as possible in this video, just because I don't want that to interfere with this one. And going back to the last example, what I should have done is I should have checked my mask, and it's fine right here, but sometimes, you know, if you have moving parts or moving heads or moving arms, what they could do is they could, in theory, be masked out. So if I moved my arm here and it went out of the mask, I would just have to make the mask a little bit bigger or change the shape of the mask. So that's definitely something I would keep in mind when you're doing this, because for my video resume, I noticed there was a specific shot when I was green screening myself being interviewed that my body actually moved out of the mask at one point, and I had to just move the mask path. So with that being said, let's just get into actually masking myself again. So we're gonna grab the pen tool once again, and using as few points as possible, we're just going to mask myself. So you can see this hard edge here, which for this example doesn't matter too much because I was going to end up keying it out. However, it still bothers me a little, and I didn't do it with the first one, is I'm just gonna go ahead and feather out the first one and go down to the second one and feather out the second one as well. And you'll notice that difference right there. What I can actually do is I can zoom in to show you that. So watch this hard edge right here where the green changes colors as I'm feathering it out. You'll notice it blends in so much better, and there you have it. So let's go ahead and see what I have done for this one.
Yes, this all sounds great. I'm just wondering what separates you from the rest of the candidates we have on file.
And that one looked good to me as well. Now, I am planning on doing an entire tutorial for green screening, both in Premiere and another one for After Effects. So do stick with me there. However, if you're wondering how you could just really quickly get rid of this green screen, I will show you how to do that after this quick message. And before we finish up today's tutorial, feel free to hit the subscribe button and the little bell icon to get notified when I post new content. Also, check out my gear list in the description. Thanks so much. So what we're going to do is we're going to select all of our video. We're going to right click and we're going to hit nest. Then we're going to type in all 3 of me. Hit OK. We're going to go up to our effects. We're going to type in color key and drag that down onto our nest. We're going to go over to our effects controls, hit the dropper tool, and drop it right onto a good sample of the green. And you're probably like, what the heck? That did absolutely nothing. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn up the color tolerance just a little bit. And you'll notice as I'm using the arrow keys and turning it up more and more, it is becoming black, and that's because I have nothing below it. So we're just going to go up to, I don't know, about 55 or so. 60 works great. Then I'm going to go back to editing, and I'm going to go down to my toolbar, and I'm going to pull out my pen tool. I'm going to zoom out here, and I'm just going to draw a random graphic on here just so I have a background. Go back to my select tool. Now I just created this gray graphic just for an example. I actually ended up putting an image behind me, but you can really put anything you want. So I'm going to click on the nest here, and I'm going to actually zoom in, and you may think this looks pretty good, and it does. However, as I mentioned before, I did have the issue of having a little bit of spill on the wall here because the wall was glossy. So I think what I actually ended up doing in my video resume was just drawing a mask, so it continued to show the picture behind me rather than having to figure out a way to get the spill. And you can use spill suppressors and After Effects and all that stuff, but for how much time we spent on this, it actually did a pretty good job. You could turn up the edge thin, just a few, and you could feather this out, but it's starting to look a little bit blurry around the edges, so you do want to be careful of that. Green screening is a whole tutorial in and of itself, and I do plan on doing one in the future, like I said before, so be on the lookout for that. Thank you so much for joining me for another Premiere Pro tutorial. As always, comment down below what you'd like to see in future videos. Thanks so much. Take it easy.